Welcome students. Today we are going to see the session in the topic of view of data. So the objective of the session is to know about the view of data and the architecture of the database management system. The outcome of the session is that the students may be able to understand the three levels of DBMS architecture. So these are the outline of the session. We are going to deal with data abstraction definition and what are the three types of schema, that is physical schema or internal schema, conceptual or logical schema, or external schema, and the definition for instances. Next we'll be seeing the three levels of DBMS architecture. In that the three levels are physical or internal level, conceptual or logical level, external or view or user level. So in the DBMS architecture, we will be dealing about the concept called mapping, which is defined by the term called data independence. There are two different types of data independence. One is physical data independence and one is logical data independence. So these are the outlines for this session. Let's start with the view of data. So what is the main purpose of database management system? Is to provide the users with an abstract view of the data. That is, so hiding certain details from the user, that is hiding the details of implementation and how the data is stored and maintained. So these details will be hidden from the user. So that's the term called data abstraction comes into picture. Since many database system users are not computer trained, the developers will be hiding the complexity from the users through several levels of abstraction to simplify the user's interaction with the system. Okay. So let's see the definition for schema. So schema is defined as the logical structure of the database. It does not show any data in the database. And the classification of schema, there are three types over there. One is physical schema, second one is conceptual schema, and third one is external schema. So in general, schema will be describing the logical structure of the database. So in other words, schema can be defined as the overall design of the database, or in other words, the logical structure of the database is called as schema. So once the schema is specified during the database design, it will not be changed frequently. And the database schema will be corresponding to the programming language type definition, which is similar to the variable type of the information that is variable in a program. So we'll see the definitions for three types of schema. Physical, otherwise called as internal schema. The second one is conceptual or logical schema. The third one is external schema. Okay. So these are the pictorial representation of the three levels of DBMS architecture. And the lower level is physical level, in which physical schema is acting upon it. And the second level is conceptual level, on which conceptual schema is acting upon it. And the third level is external schema, which is a view schema or external schema will be acting on it. Okay, there are two kinds of mapping is carried out. External mapping is carried out between the conceptual schema and the external schema, and conceptual mapping is carried on between the physical level and the conceptual level. So three levels of schema. Physical schema will be describing the physical storage of the database. So here the three levels are mentioned in the picture. Internal level. So all the storage kinds of work is maintained in the internal level. And in the conceptual level, community users will be there. And external level, different kinds of users will be acting upon it. And physical schema will be describing physical storage of database and not in terms of blocks or devices. It describes how the organization of file is carried out and how the access path through which we can access the files. Conceptual schema describes the structure of the whole database, and it describes what are the entities involved in it and what are the relationships involved between the entities and the constraints. So all these will be described in the conceptual schema. External schema, it provides the user's view of data, and it also shows relevant information particular to the user and hides the rest of the information. So in the external level, you can have one or more users will be acting on it. So what I mean by instance is nothing but the actual data contained in the database at a particular point of time. Okay. So database schema is the description of the database, and it describes the database structure and what are the data types used and the constraints on the database. Constraints means the rules that is set on the database. So we'll see the definition for schema diagram, that is an illustrated display of the database schema is called a schema diagram. Schema construct is a component of the schema or an object within the schema is called a schema construct. For example, student, course. Okay. Let's see the example of database schema. Here we are having this schema construct, student, course, prerequisite, section, and grade report. So what are the fields involved in it or picturized here? So totally we call this as a schema diagram for the database. Okay. So here is the all these collectively we call it as a schema diagram for the university database. So student, course, prerequisite, section, and grade report are the schema construct for the university database. Okay. So what do you mean by database state? So the actual data stored in a database at a particular moment in time. This is nothing but the collection of the data fed into the database is called as database state, otherwise called as database instance, or in other words we can call it by the term called occurrence or snapshot. So instance means already we have seen the content, actual content stored in the database is called instance. Okay. So let's see the example for the course. In the course schema construct or course table, course name, course number, credit hours, and department. So all the related data belonging to the fields are entered into the course table. So this is we call this as a database instance. So let's move on to the 3-level architecture of DBMS. So DBMS, we have already seen that it's a collection of software programs that enable the user to create the database and maintain the database. The purpose of the DBMS is to provide the user with the abstract view of database. The system does not provide all the details of the data, rather it hides some implementation details from the user. So this leads to the design of complex data structures in the database. So we are going to proceed with the 3 levels of database management architecture: physical level or internal level, conceptual or logical level, external or view or user level. This is the pictorial representation of 3 level of architecture. So here we are having the stored database, and the next level is internal level, on which internal schema is acting upon it, and the mapping is conceptual internal mapping, that is between the internal level and the conceptual level. And the another mapping is carried out between the conceptual level and the external level. Okay. So let's see the example for the 3 levels. So at the view level, you can go on creating more than one number of views depending upon the request. So view 1 is nothing but the view 1 is created for the account folder having the fields account name and the amount, and view 2 is generated for the manager having the fields account number, account name, type and amount. Okay. So based on the request of the user, more number of views will be created. Regarding to the conceptual level, so for each and every fields, the data type will be mentioned with the size. And according to the internal level, so the total length of the field will be specified, and the type will be carrying out how many number of bits with the size will be specified, and also along with that offset will also be specified. So the physical storage specification will be carried out in the internal or the physical level. Okay. So the objective of the 3-level architecture is that each user should be able to access the same data but have a different customized view of the data. Users should not have to deal directly with the physical database storage in data. So the database administrator should be able to change the database storage structure without affecting the user's views. And the internal structure of the database should be unaffected by the changes to the physical aspects of storage. The DBA should be able to change the conceptual structure of the database without affecting the all users also. So here is all about the external view. It's a high level or top level of the abstraction in which this level is concerned with the user. It describes in which way the data are viewed by the individual user. It includes number of users' views, and each external schema describes only part of the entire database and the particular user is interested in, and rest will be hidden from the user. So there are more number of users will be created based on their request. The views can also hide the information for security purpose. For example, we can hide the employee salary detail from the others. Okay. For example, an account department may only be interested in the student's fees detail. It would not be expected to have any interest in the personal information about the students. The conceptual level is the next higher level of abstraction, and this is an intermediate level, and it describes what data are actually stored in the database. It has a conceptual schema and describes the structure of the whole database for the community of users. It also hides the details of the physical storage structures. This level will be used by the database administrator who must decide what information is to be kept in the database. It will be concentrating on describing what are the entities involved, what are the data types and the relationships that exist among the entities, users, operations and constraints. All these will be concentrated on at this conceptual level. High level data model or an implementation data model can be used at this level. Internal view is the lowest level, and it has a physical schema or the internal schema. It describes how the data are actually stored on the storage medium. It is close to the physical storage medium, and it is also close to the database programmer. At the physical level, complex low-level data structures are described in detail. So storage allocation, access path are all considered at this level. So this internal view does not deal with the physical devices directly. Instead, it views the physical device as a collection of physical pages and allocates spaces in terms of logical space. This is an example of logical level. So here you are having the instructor record with the following fields: ID, name, department name, and salary with the following data types